Mackenzie, and welcome to the Standing Committee on the Premier and Constitutional Matters. Today we're deliberating on the special adjustment budget for the Department of the Premier. I'm going to give the members the opportunity to introduce themselves, the Premier and his team, and then we'll proceed to the meeting. Before I continue, Wasim, has the recording started for the meeting?
Yes, Chairperson.
Okay, thank you. Members, introduce yourself and then I hand over to the Premier and the team, then we'll continue with the meeting. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning to the Premier and the Department. I'm Regan Allen.
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, Premier. Good to see that you fit in well. Morning to everyone else. I'm Cameron Dugmore. I'm one of the ANC members of on this committee. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairperson, Premier, and all colleagues and department. Wendy Philan. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Premier. Good morning, everyone online. I'm Dalen Mitchell.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Premier and the team. The name is Melika Akab from the EFF.
Is that everyone? Premier and your team, if you can just introduce you and your team, and then we'll start. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Alan Wendy, Premier. And straight over to the DG.
Good morning, Chair and all the members of Parliament, and also to the Premier, Harry Malila. I'm the Director General and the Accounting Officer for Vote 1. Can the rest of the colleagues just introduce themselves, Chair, or do you want me to go through the list quickly?
They can just quickly introduce themselves.
Thank you.
30 seconds each maximum.
Andre first.
Good morning, Premier, Chairperson, members. Andre Jumat, Head of the Corporate Services Centre.
Rikus.
Good morning, members. Good morning, Premier. It's Rikus Passon, CFO, Department of the Premier.
Faza.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Premier and everyone. I'm Faiza Steyn. I'm Head of Corporate Communications.
Henriette.
Good morning, Chairperson, Premier, and all the members. Henriette Robson, DDG Corporate Assurance.
Hilton.
Good morning, Premier, Chairperson, and all members, and also with my colleague in P. Hilton Arendse, Centre for Innovation.
Linda.
Good morning, Chair and members. Morning, Premier and all officials. Linda Grootboom.
And then Lucas.
Good morning, Premier colleagues. Lucas Buter, Legal Services.
Marsha.
Good morning, Premier. Good morning, Chairperson, members and colleagues. Marsha Poston, Provincial Strategic Management.
Then Michael.
Good morning, Premier, Chairperson and members. Michael Hendrickse, Head of People Management in the Corporate Services Centre.
Lastly, Robert Shaw.
Okay, Mr. Shaw is here. So
Mr. Shaw is here.
I apologize, Chairperson. It's the unmute takes a while. My name is Robert Shaw. I'm from the Office of the DG, and good morning to Premier, members, and all.
Thank you, everyone. Did we miss anyone? Members of the public? Anyone else want to introduce themselves quickly?
Chair, who is MK? I'm sure it's not Umkhonto Wesizwe. MK.
Never know.
We never know who's here.
No, I think that's Marsha Corsten.
Marsha, okay. Thank you, members and everyone. Members, a few points before we start. All members are to be muted at the beginning of the meeting to avoid background noises. For the members to flag points of order in the chat function on MS Teams. All videos and audio must be switched off to improve the quality of the connection. However, if an official is speaking, they may put on their mic and their video. And participants, please switch off your mic after you finish speaking, because we tend to hear a lot of things happening afterwards. Without further ado, did Mr. Linda Grootboom introduce himself?
Yes, he did.
Oh, okay. I just saw his name pop out on my screen. Okay, so Premier, I'm going to write you to an opportunity for you and then the DG to just make some quick introductory remarks, and then I'll ask members if they have any questions on the introductory remarks. And members, while they speak, if you can find your way to page 33 of the Special Adjustments Bill, because we're going to start from page 33. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chair. And we've got the whole team here. I will sort of just give a very high level, and then I think I'll let the DG go more into the numbers. I mean, from the outset, remembering that this is a special adjustment specifically only for COVID-19. So I think it tells a little bit of a story of what we've been doing for the last few months. And of course, with .P, much more of a coordination role, except I suppose that we also found the ability to play a leadership role too. And I think, you know, looking at the increase of 6.35 million rand that is coming to the vote doesn't really tell the full story. So, you know, when you get into the numbers and the nuts and bolts of the numbers, you get a better handle on, you know, what we have been doing. But I think from the outside, if I have to divide it into different categories, I think first of all, IT and ICT. And, you know, the world changed while you know, we all had to deal with COVID-19. And of course, this department had to play a leading role there. So both ICT and IT, whether it was enabling boardrooms to be able to run with MS Teams like we're running now, whether it was making sure that the Joint Operations Command was enabled, you know, enabling our own staff to operate from home, work from home. So it was dongles and data, and you know, we've got thousands of employees that had to be enabled to work through the system. Also, our CEI team, who played a role not only internally within government, but also when we went out and specifically, for example, like at the Hospital of Hope at the CTICC, you know, really enabling ICT and tech so that citizens could be in contact, that we could be paperless. At the same time, also bringing the Child Commissioner's office on board and getting the Child Commissioner set up. So from the ICT and tech space, I think also a lot of work done that enabled us to do what we do remotely and safely. And also, I think, really positioned this government again into a much more tech-orientated way of doing business. Also, this department had to play a big role in communications. So it was making sure that from our side, both within the political communications component of the Premier's office, but also corporate communications within the organization itself. And communications was varied from, you know, whether it was radio adverts or interacting with cell phone organizations to try and get free messaging going out, targeting it in the hotspots, whether it was changing of the messaging or research to find out what is the messaging meaning and is it landing on the ground within our citizens. So communication also played a very, very big role in making sure, from loud hailing in communities. So definitely communications as getting and linking into behavioral change in dealing with COVID-19. I think the call center operations, both enabling and helping other departments, and also as an operation, making sure that we were interacting with the citizen had a contact with government, and we were either making sure that those messages were getting back into our existing departments, or even linking through to national departments, you know, wherever that may have been. It could have been UIF requests, it could have been food parcel assistance and the 350 Rand from SASSA. So really the call center operations, ramping it up, making sure that we were able to deal with that citizen interface. And then I think very importantly, the internal audit and making sure, you know, we heard the President say last night about some of the corruption that's come into the system. And I must say, from this government's point of view, right from the word go, let's make sure that under the disaster regulations, and of course this will be shown by Treasury as was announced yesterday, we're going to actually put out an open document that shows every person that we've tendered with, every company we've tendered with, what the price was of that PPE product, the price that we paid, who's involved, so that it really does open it up. But internal audits have been playing a strong role there, making sure that you know, that we are you know, we are doing this correctly from the get-go. And then perhaps last of all, the role that the department plays and specifically around cabinet services. You know, we, even before the announcement, I still remember we'd already had our second, which I suppose in South African terms now we call Command Council, but we'd already had our second emergency extended cabinet. We were busy holding a cabinet when the president phoned me to interact on declaration of disaster. And that just continued throughout the extended cabinet, bringing in the districts. You know, just the intensity of production of minutes put pressure on the system. Because instead of having one cabinet meeting every second week, we were having 3 cabinet meetings and a strategic meeting in 1 week. All needed to be managed, all needed to be linked in through ICT, all needed to have minutes. And of course, those minutes get sent regularly to the National Command Council so that they have got a handle on what we are doing in the province. So definitely a big role in coordination. And of course, that's what this adjustment is. I'm not going to go any further into the numbers. I'm going to hand straight over now to DG, who can probably embellish and add a little bit here and there to what I've just said. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Premier. DG.
Thank you, Premier, for that comprehensive response. Chairperson, I thought of just taking you quite quickly through the numbers so that you just understand where we find ourselves from a budget summary perspective. You will note, Chair, on I think the page that you referred to, page 33, the net adjustment for this vote is 6.35 million, taking us from 1.688 billion to 1.694 billion. And in fact, Chair,
DG, if you just mind, DG, sorry to interrupt you. Members, have you found your way to page 33?
Yes, Chair, we have.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page. DGB, before you continue, can I perhaps ask members if there's any question on what the Premier said before we continue? Because once the DG is there, then we continue with page 33 onwards, downwards.
Yes, Chair, I do have some questions.
DG, can you just hang on for a few minutes? So, because once you start on page 33, then we continue once, then we know that we're dealing with it. Okay, Member Dagmo, anyone else? Okay, Member Dagmo, you can continue in the meantime.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thanks to the Premier for the overview. And the Premier referred to a few things which I want to ask questions about, and then he didn't refer to one particular issue which I believe is in the domain of the Department of Premier, which I'll also ask about. Firstly, both the MEC as well as the Premier referred to the House of Hope, and you know, the Premier's also referred to issues of procurement. There's been a lot of speculation in the media about exactly what amount of money is paid to the convention centre to utilize that facility. Now, I presume that comes from the public works budget, but if the Premier could just clarify to us, because clearly we need to monitor very closely how procurement is happening, but it would appear to me that whatever was agreed with the convention centre was negotiated. So if the Premier could just clarify for us what that amount is, if he's aware of it. Secondly, there was mention made of the Children's Commissioner falling under the Department of Premier. I would just like to ask, in the main budget book, if possibly one of the officials could just tell us in what particular program or sub-program that item is covered, and then also just clarify for us what exactly is the agreed budget for the Children's Commissioner, and what role has the Children's Commissioner played during the lockdown since her appointment. There was also reference to the call centre. I would just like to ask whether the Department of the Premier assisted social development in setting up that call centre that specifically dealt with the issue of the 50,000 food parcels, because I'm sure the Premier and everyone is aware of the huge frustrations which resulted in regard to how that call centre actually operated, people being kept on the line for hours, people often not being responded to. So I just want to ask, was that the Premier's department that assisted social development, or was that their own initiative? And then in regard to advertising, I would just like to ask, and possibly the Premier might want to just defer that to the more detailed discussion there. But was there any monitoring process put in place to actually assess the impact of the messaging and whether that in fact has contributed to behavior change? I ask this because in the beginning, and the Premier is aware of this, we had concerns that the MEC for Health, in terms of her communication about masks, had actually, in our view, not assisted because her communication was almost describing the wearing of a mask as not necessarily contributing to helping to prevent the spread of the pandemic. So was there any process of actually monitoring the impact of the communication?
Member Dagmar?
Yeah.
Can we finish off, please? And you're going a bit off now of the purpose while we're here. I'm going to give you a few seconds just to finish off. Thank you, because the other members' hands are up as well.
Yeah. Now, Chair, you did ask us if we had any questions, and that's exactly, I'm just exercising my right to ask those questions. But
I fully respect that. The 6 more members in this committee as well. Okay.
Yeah. And then just in regard to the last 2 points, the Premier did not refer to the district development model in regard to his description of the relationship with the National Command Council and so on. I would just like to ask, what is the official view, given that it could be argued very strongly that as part of dealing with the pandemic, we need to support cooperative government? Our view is that the district development model is trying to achieve that. So I would like to ask, what is the position of the Premier in regard to the district development model, and how far have we progressed in the province in that regard? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, members. I just want to be mindful of us while we are here this morning on the special adjustment vote. I just want us to be very mindful of purpose here. We've only got an hour and we've got 6 members in this meeting. So please, let's just stay focused. Member Murray?
Thank you, Chairman. I was just looking for page 33, but with my limited knowledge of the technology, I managed to find it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Premier and DG, you just want to respond to that remarks? I know there were 3 or 2 questions that I know have been dealt with in other committees as well. So I'll give you an opportunity to respond. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Okay, first of all, the CTRCC. So, I mean, there's a very, very comprehensive agreement that must be dealt with under Public Works, but that comprehensive agreement is a rent-free use of the facility. So we don't pay for actual square meter rental, but of course the facility does come with services. So we bought the services of security, the kitchen services, electricity gets paid for, water, sewerage, etc., etc. But that will come out, I think, in the full document, unless the DG wants to sort of add any numbers to that. But I think, obviously that's the Public Works agreement that was put together, and that agreement can be tabled in that standing committee, because that's obviously where that budget sits. Then with regards to the call center, I think also I'll let the DG and Andre talk about that. We did at one stage have a big backlog, as the Honourable Member was talking about. We even got the industry, the call center industry, to come alongside through DDAT to help us. But our own industry, our own call center, we can get the details from Andre. We even repurposed some of our own staff and some of our staff that were volunteers. For example, we had staff members who were focusing on events. Events all came to a direct standstill. So those exact same members of staff then made themselves available for other areas like call centers. Then with regards to the advertising, the research and masks, and of course, this, if we remember at one stage, the health department, the Honourable Member is correct, the health department and even the World Health Organization had a position on masks. and it's very technical, but we did hold a full digicon on this with the specialists from the health department. When you have low cases, it actually ends up spreading the cases because more people touch their face, etc. But then you get to a tipping point where in actual fact masks then become more advantageous than not. And of course we were at that initial stage, was that vacillation between the two, and then we got to a position within government with meetings, etc., where we took the decision to say that well, now we've got to the stage where masks are advisable, and obviously I think we all know what happened from there. We also linked to that when I think about the research, we have ongoing research that influences behavioral change, checks that the messages are getting out, whether it was the wearing of masks or just understanding and zooming in right into a hotspot like Dunoon, and the research will come back on a report on Dunoon and what change has happened, have messages been reaching the citizen, what do they understand of those messages, and then that would come back and then retweet, and we'd have to change the loud hailing message or whatever it was. So there was ongoing matching research at that same time. And then lastly, with regards to the district model, absolutely, we have followed that from day one. We support the district model. What we haven't done, we haven't got finality yet from the president on the deployment of national ministers. National ministers were assigned to the district model, but then what happened is every national minister came in and said now he wants the provincial cabinet to report to them, and they must come and give a briefing on Monday to this minister, and on Tuesday to that minister. The health department needs to then be available to go and ride around and check this area, and then no, but now we've got another minister on the same day. It was just total chaos. And so I wrote to the president and said, this cannot be. I also have had a conversation with him on it, and I'm waiting for his correspondence back on how and what the responsibility is of the national ministers within the deployed district model, and we still are waiting that. So obviously it's ongoing because it's divided into hotspots wall to wall across this province. But I mean, the president actually wants to come and have a look at the province's district model. His words to me were that your province has at least got it right, and I would myself like to come and see how you are managing it. So every single cabinet from right in the very beginning has included the MMs and the municipal managers and the mayors from the districts. The districts have been part of it. They are integral as part of the hotspot management. They have been since day one. DG, I'm not sure if you want to add anything to.
Thank you, DG.
Thank you, Premier and Chair. Just on the issue of the Children's Commissioner, it's covered in Program 2 under the special programs, and we've provided a budget in accordance to the allocation letter that we've received from Treasury. It basically for the initial setup of the Children's Commission, and then obviously the salary components, for whoever going to get employed into that institution. And as I've indicated, when we table the main budget, that money is earmarked, so we cannot use it for anything else other than what the Children Commissioner, what we can spend on the Children Commissioner. So Chair, that's not been dealt with in this adjustments, because obviously this adjustments only deal with the issue of COVID. Then, Chair, on the Hospital of Hope, as Premier has indicated, our Legal Services Department have assisted extensively, particularly with the contracting issues between ourselves through the Department of Public Works and Health. And the agreement is basically a cost of around 42 million. That includes the cost of the setup of the hospital through a company called Scan Display. And I mean, that information is readily available. And the agreement is that if the rental agreement is extended, then we would pay an amount of about 12.8 million rand per month. So at the moment, the 42 million is made up out of the cost for the 3 months, plus the cost to actually do the setup through Scan Display. But all that information is available in detail at the Department of Transport and Public Works. Chair, also just to note, that is an 862 bed facility. And I think Minister Mania yesterday in his speech outlined exactly, how big the institution is, what exactly is there, how many people work there in relation to the different professional staff. Chair, I'm going to ask Andre just to talk about the call center, but the gist is, you will recall that when the president announced the lockdown in the 3rd week of March, we were not set up at that stage to deal with a total surge that we've seen in the number of people that's going to require help, whether it's through food parcels or in relation to COVID. So immediately after the lockdown, in our planning, we realized that there's a humanitarian crisis potentially coming, because we anticipated that the lockdown is going to run for at least over the initial 2 to 3 weeks period that was announced. And then we started to put the process in place actually to up our call center. We've made the numbers available for people to call. And in fact, that was the time also when we had to procure additional people to actually man the call center. Chair, you can understand, if you jump from an average of about 2,000 calls a day to, at certain days, jumping to 14, 15,000 calls a day, you cannot deal with that all at the same time. And then initially, obviously, if people can't get through, then they get bumped up after they've held on for X amount of period. So we've upped our ICT space, and I mean, Andre can talk to the additional lines that we've instituted, as well as obviously the capacity. And Premier spoke about the fact that people even jumped in that were not necessarily call center operators. In our own department, the Department of the Premier, we had even our own staff during the lockdown actually coming in, taking calls, people that works in internal audit, to actually just help the current team that is running that entire system. Chair, what we've done after that, so that that capacity didn't go to waste, we've now used the capacity actually to do the follow-up on people that have tested positively for COVID. So it's typically calling the people, asking them if they okay, asking them if they need additional help, and also where people can call us to actually ask, for particular information or need particular help in that respect. And then obviously also the work around SASSA. So Chair, I'm going to just ask Andre if there's anything you wanted to say from his side. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jumar.
Thank you, Chairperson. The DG and the Premier gave quite a comprehensive response in regard to this question. I think what I'll do in the interest of time is, if required, we could put together a summary report in terms of the actual numbers of where to ramp up our agents from what we had, about 12 to ultimately approximately 80 agents, the number of lines. We could also be held stats and data of how we progressed from response times to the number of calls that dropped, and how we improved on that. So I, in the interest of time, I suggest we just put together a short report.
In fact, what I've just made a note for myself, we will make a recommendation at one of our meetings. You can just come and do a presentation. Thank you very much for that. And I think that covers everything. Members, if you go to page 33, please.
Speaker, can I ask a question?
Member Murray, is it on page 33 and up to page 44, or is it a question on the forward?
No, it's a question on the Premier's response.
Okay, I'll give you one question if you don't mind, because we're running out of time.
Yes. Welcome back, Premier, but I have a simple question. You mentioned, and it caught my attention, the district model is total chaos, and that you wrote to the President. I want to ask you, did you also inquire from your legal department to what extent National is interfering in provincial affairs? As far as my knowledge is, the National Department is only responsible for tertiary education, not schools. That's a provincial function. The same is with hospitals. They're only responsible for academic hospitals, not for ordinary regional hospitals, not even for clinics, which is a function of the local government. I want to know, are you satisfied that the extent of interference into the powers of provinces has not been extended, and what you're going to do about it? if they are interfering unconstitutionally in how we run this province.
Thank you, Member Murray. Premier?
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, the Honourable Member, for the question. Part of the letter to the President was to ask the question around legality of our Constitution, what is the mandate? And in my own one-on-one discussion with him on this issue, there is no constitutional mandate that actually does allow for a national minister to be deployed into a district municipality. So it's, and that's what we're waiting for back in writing. There is nothing in the Constitution, and it is seen as this is how we can help. And of course, we already do report back every single week we have a weekly report back on the hotspots by district and sub-district in the city, and that report goes directly to the National Command Council once a week. But that was also part of the letter. Of course, our letter was only about the district model and not about, universities or education, etc.
Thank you, Premier. Members, I'm going to allow each member 2 minutes, because we are already running out of time. And then you allow to ask your questions up to the annexures, just to make it easier, and then give the department opportunity to respond. So do I see the first hand?
Chair.
Member Dugmore.
Shall I proceed?
Proceed, and I will time members. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Chair, I would just like to ask that in regard to the main appropriations and then the adjustment which happened, obviously executive governance, 5 million, provincial strategic management, 7, people management, 16. Those were essentially amounts of allocations that were withdrawn. So could we just have a sense as to what those amounts were actually going to pay for, which they are obviously not going to pay for now? So just a description in that regard. I see that on page 35 under program 4, there's a 30 million for license contracted impacted by the rate of exchange. Now, can that just be explained, because this is now linked to a COVID adjustment. So I just want to get a sense of what was the actual breakdown, what was exchange rate, and how did we end up with having to pay 30 million rand extra for how many licenses, and link that to the exchange rate. And in regard to the 5 million for the boardrooms, could we just get a sense of how many boardrooms this actually covered? The Premier's referred to the provincial cabinet, but can we just get a sense of what that 5 million has actually bought? Then I think finally, on page 37, there's a list there of all the gifts and donations received, and they mainly refer to radio, and then the amount that's reflected there is 9.4 million. Now, I presume that 9.4 million is essentially an estimate of the value of those adverts. So I would like to ask, in regard to other expenditure during the COVID for all these particular forms of media, obviously we're now reporting on a so-called donation, but what did we actually pay all these radio stations in real terms in regard to other advertising that then happened?
Member Dugmore, 2 minutes is up. Can I have the next member, please? Okay, let me continue. Premier, I just want to find out these expenditure items that's highlighted here, and whether it's communication or whether it's the call center, additional money for the call centers. Will those be published in that report that the Minister of Finance is going to publish from next week, Tuesday onwards? Or, and if not, if you can just provide us a detailed response as to where these monies were spent on. And then with regards to the donation to the SPCA, and well done, I think during this pandemic, we all forget that our animals are also in a state of distress. And I don't have my previous books with me. Is this sort of a normal donation, or is it just a special donation to the SPCA, and was that done in the previous years? and are you going to continue supporting the SPCA going forward? Members, any other questions?
Chair?
Not Member Dagmo. Any other members got any questions? Member Mare?
Speaker, Chairman, I would just like to think that perhaps would have served the purpose far better if we had it aside on the screen, the various pages referred to, instead of somebody's controlling what I'm saying here, and they move it at will. That is not the way we normally operate.
Member Maria, which page do you want to ask a question on?
I can't if I don't see the page, because somebody is controlling the pages here and they show you what they want to show you. We don't have hard copies. We're working it online. And so how can I follow it if somebody controls what pages I am seeing? I'm just asking you that this is not the way normally we operate. We have on the side of the screen, they show us all the various pages as they are presented and we can follow it. But now somebody moves it up and down, up and down, up and down. How can we follow the debate?
Okay, Member Murray. Can I ask, in the meantime, the department will respond to the questions, and Wasima, if you can just move page by page from page 33 downwards, so Member Murray can follow it. Just do it in a slow manner so he can read it while the department responds, and then Member Murray can ask a question once the department has completed this round of questions. Thank you. Premier and HOD.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm going to go straight to Dr. Malila.
Sorry, sorry, Dr. Malila. Mr. Malila, did somebody else have a hand up? Did I miss somebody?
No, Chair. I mean, I want to come in. Yes. Chair, I'm going to try and respond to the stuff and maybe ask Driekus also if he'd like to add. It's a point I wanted to make initially, so I'm going to respond to what Minister Dagmo asked. Yes, it's absolutely correct. The net adjustment for this vote is 6.3 million. There are positive and negative adjustments per program. The negative ones as he indicated, program 1, 2, and 3, and then positive adjustments to program 4 as well as program 5. The 30 million in essence relates to the ICT license contract, and you may recall, Chair, with the advent of COVID, there's been an amendment in terms of the rate of exchange. In fact, the rand lost some ground against the dollar, and that is the implications, because obviously we're paying these licenses in I mean it's about 100 million. Driekus can actually come in here and give us the exact rate of exchange at the particular point and at the point where we're paying it. This is something that we generally take up with the Treasury, because in a lot of the cases, Chair, this is something that is outside of our control, and the agreement that we have with Microsoft is actually denominated within dollar, so effectively everything is actually paid against the rand dollar exchange rate. Then, Chair, we also received an amount of about 11.8 million for communications campaign in relation to phase 1, and in fact we have all the detail in terms of exactly how much we've paid for communication in relation to phase 1. Also phase 2, the Premier spoke about the research that we're doing, you know, on a weekly basis in relation to this, and this is in addition to the monies that we've received in relation to the gifts that has actually also been disclosed in the document. The question is generally, so where did this money come from? We've taken 4 million, just a little bit more than 4 million from savings on non-essential expenditure within the vote that's now been utilized to fund particularly communications. The Treasury also agreed to unearmark some of the money that we've set aside initially in the main budget for Western Cape government branding. We've now utilized it for phase 2 communication campaign, and you would also see, Chair, that in this there's also a 15 million that's been added for phase 3. Obviously, you know, phase 3 would take us beyond the current August time frame, because obviously we've indicated initially, that we're going to reach the peak at a particular point in time, and then the spend on communication will go down. Chair, I've already spoken to the contact center issues, and then just in relation to page 37 on gifts and donations, the 9.4 million is the value that we've placed on the gift. So when people like the Vodacoms, etc., said we want to give you 5 million WhatsApps or SMSs for free, we've placed a value on that, and we've actually disclosed all of that. Then the member also asked around the 5 million for the boardrooms. It's mainly relating to ICT. Chair, part of the savings in this vote is obviously the fact that there's no traveling, particularly to Pretoria. We do not travel, given the lockdown, to some of the other areas. There's no hotel accommodation, and we've taken a lot of that money and redirected into the new way of working. The first boardroom that we had to look at was on the 7th floor, and I'm sure Member Dugmore knows that boardroom very well, 7th floor within the tower block. And then we're also looking particularly at boardrooms in our different areas, particularly on the first floor, and also where internal audits sit, also where some of the training initiative sit. So our CEI team is currently busy doing that. Also understanding, Chair, that kitting up some of these boardrooms or upping the tech requirements cost a lot of money. And in fact, we've used that money to make sure at least that we can have some form of communication. The Premier also spoke about our command council now extends not just to Cabinet or Western Cape government, but we have the police dialing in 2 times a week. We've got all the district municipalities dialing in, the administration dialing in, and people can actually dial in. We're even receiving presentations from weather services. We're receiving presentations from places like Eskom, etc., in terms of managing the crisis. So all of these people are actually just dialing into our network, and then also obviously our engagement with the city. Chair, on your own question relating to the expenditure items, I mean, we've got full record of everything that we've spent. I haven't seen the detail of how the national government and the president in particular, wants to publish certain information in relation to COVID. But what we generally do, if we receive any queries from national in relation to particular publications from a national perspective, you
Sorry,
can ask.
DJ, that is Minister Mania, another president.
Minister Mania. Yeah. Chair, you're talking about the issue around the procurement portal and stuff like that. Yes, Chair. That's currently still under discussion, the form and content. But the idea is that and Premier also spoke about it, that we will make public whatever we spend on COVID, and it's currently working out, how the form of that will look at. And I mean, we can come back, to this committee, once all the detail have been sorted out. But I think the assurance I want to give you, Chair, is that in terms of the entire government, given the fact that we've also set up our own procurement framework, with the Treasury obviously heading this thing up, that we've got all the detail of all the major procurement initiatives, particularly in health, transport and public works, and in some of the other departments. And then, Chair, your last question on the SPCA, that is a donation that we've made. I think that was around middle of April. That was obviously after we've already started to, support people. That was in the more or less the 3rd, the 4th week of the lockdown. And we realized, Chair, when people go hungry, the last thing that they think about are the animals. Okay, and we've made this donation available to the SPCA, but under the condition to say that the money needs to go to feed animals in the poorest of the poor areas. So they couldn't use the money for sterilization and all these other initiatives, but particularly to support particularly your smaller institutions in these poor areas where these animals are, with feeding the animals. So on the one hand, we looked at feeding of people, which is very important, and we made this donation available to the SPCA to deal with it. I mean, I can also ask Driekus to indicate if we've done this in the past, Chair, but this was partly our response, to in relation to COVID-19 for the animals. I think that's it, Chair. That takes care of all the questions. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Member Marais, did you get a chance to go through the document?
Speaker, yes. I prefer to touch on political points. I leave all the figures to the Auditor General.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. I want to take this opportunity to thank the Premier and the department. I know that we're going through a very difficult period, and I just wish them all the best. I haven't seen any further hands up, and I know we have several other businesses to deal with. So Premier and your team, thank you very much. We do appreciate it, and we do appreciate that you took the time to come this morning. And we're really thankful for your team and the communication strategy. We've seen a lot of these things. We've seen the billboards. We've listened to the ads on radio. The call center has been effective, and we will make some resolutions just for a special presentation on the call center. But otherwise, thank you for coming this morning, and wish you all and your staff the best of health in dealing with COVID-19 as we go forward. And yeah, is there anything else before you want to say before you leave?
No, just Chair, that joining on your words that it's not over. We've still got a way to go, because what we don't want to have is a second wave like we've seen happening in other parts of the world, and that's why the continuation of this hotspot model by district and sub-district in the city is so important. I had an opportunity to join the Klipfontein one last night, and it's now whole of government and whole of society. And we've got to continue. Obviously, this is the first part of it. The big problem is that is funding, and we're having to find this money within our own budgets. No matter what is said at a national level, I mean, the president said to us in the convention center when we opened it, "Don't worry, money's no problem." But I mean, we're not getting that money coming down at all as a problem. And this have big implications for us in the second adjustment in November, and then of course next year's budget again, because we're going to have to decide, what are we actually going to be doing going forward, and that's obviously where the focus is right now. What is a provincial government going to do, understanding the pressure our budgets are going to be under? We've got to make some real strategic decisions on where we must focus and how the money must be channeled. But of course, that's November's adjustment.
Thank you, Premier and the team. We wish you well for the rest of the day. You're welcome to leave the meeting.
Speaker, Chairman, can I just say a few words to the Premier? Premier, thank God that you are well. I wish that you will have a full recovery. You look good. And please know that we keep you in our prayers.
Thank you, Member. Appreciate it. Really do.
Thank you. Members, can we first deal with the resolutions from this meeting? I think there's one that I had, just the presentation from Mr. Jumat and his team on the call center. And then also the second one I'd like to propose, just a spending report on the 100,000 for the SPCA, so we can at least see where that money is gone to. Anything else, members?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Chairperson, could we have a breakdown of all, because this was a question that the DG did not respond to when I asked about the media. You have a breakdown on page 37 and 38 with a number of organizations listed from Vodacom down to Zibonele. I would like to ask, what has the provincial government paid to all of those radio stations listed in terms of advertising, and a breakdown of that? That's number one. I would also like the Premier office to provide us a copy of his correspondence with the Premier in regard to, with the President in regard to the district development model. And then is it possible, Chair, that our committee can request that contract with the Hospital of Hope, and then the DG mentioned that the cost for the Hospital of Hope would be 12.8 million rand per month if extended. So we would like to know at what month does that clause click in, because clearly we've been told that it's 42 million we're paying for all sorts of different services, but it was a clear statement that it will be 12.8 million rand per month if extended. So what we would like to ask as a committee, given that the Premier raised it in this meeting, or I think, in fact, it was the DG, that until what month do we literally have so-called free rent, and at what month does the 12.8 million rand kick in? And then
thank you, Member Dagmar. Can I just quickly on that point? I know the ad hoc committee did request that information when we were there 2 weeks ago, and in fact, Member Herron requested it, so we can just ask them for a copy of it. Yeah, okay.
Okay, but could we minute that as a resolution of this committee? That's what we actually want. And then if we could have a breakdown. Finally, then if we could also have a detailed breakdown of all expenditure in the communications campaign, and a list of all the service providers that have been paid and the service that they rendered. And finally, I asked about the number of boardrooms, and there was a reference to the level 7 boardroom, but I'd like to ask for a detailed breakdown of which boardrooms were equipped, and the number and the actual location of those boardrooms. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Member Mitchell.
Thank you, Chair. I want to latch on to Honourable Dagmar on the communication, the information on the communication campaign, and I want to ask what the communication strategy was. And I'm now thinking about a town like Laingsburg that doesn't have access to Radio Gamkaland, which I'm very happy to see was mentioned. But what was done for the rural parts of the province?
Okay, excellent. Got it. Wasima, you got all of those?
Yes, Chairperson.
Okay, thank you. Members, we're just going to go. Wasima, we need to go do the consideration, right?
Yes, Chairperson.
Members, in terms of the draft consideration of the report, and you have asked your questions, that you obviously know the state that we are in. I would like us just to do the draft consideration and the adoption. And obviously, the following wording is what I'm going to put to the committee. That the Standing Committee of the Premier has concluded its deliberations on Vote 1, the Premier, which is the schedule to the Western Cape Adjustments Appropriation COVID-19 Bill 2021 B4 of 2020, referred to the committee in terms of Standing Rule 188, and that is either support or not support the vote referred to it. If I can just get some suggestions from the members.
Chairperson, Regan Allen, I propose that the committee support the vote. Thank you.
Member Allen, do you have a seconder?
Chairperson, I second the proposal. Thank you. Wendy Philander.
Thank you, Member Philander. Member Dagmar, yeah.
Chairperson, I would just like to draw your attention to the rules, because there is a provision in our rules.
Standing Rule 90, yeah.
Beg your pardon?
Standing Rule 90, yeah.
Yes, exactly. In terms of Standing Rule 90, I would like to request that the view of the opposition party is recorded against this particular adjustment, and the reasons for that will be more clearly elaborated when we have a chance to discuss the matter. So I would like to have the Rule 90 provision recorded. Thank you.
Okay, recorded. Member Marera, Member Tlejo, anything from your side?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, I do not want to. I want to say thank you for the way you've handled the meeting. I'm sorry, but I have nothing more to say for the first time.
Thank you very much. Okay, then in terms of Standing Rule 19, the African National Congress expressed its minority view not to support the vote. They'll provide reasons in the future. Members, if we can go to the minutes of the 10th of June. Wasima, can you put that on the screen, please? Or is that? Wasima, are you there?
Yes, Chairperson, Lizette's just browsing. She will put it on now. Lizette?
Yeah, I'm busy screening. Morning. Here we go.
Page 1. Page 2. Just make sure that you're present or not. Page 2. I see Member Ellen Mitchell was there. Page 2, please. If you can just get a mover and shaker for the minutes. Any change from page 2? Member Mitchell, Member Ellen, you guys were present. Mover and a shaker for the minutes.
Thank you, Chairperson. I move that we adopt.
Member Mitchell?
I second that, Chair.
Thank you. Consideration for the third quarterly report. Wasima, if you can just put it up, please. Okay, that's April to June.
Chair, that's the first quarter, eh? For this year.
Yeah. It's the first quarter, April to June. Okay, go second page, please. Okay, third page. Go down. Go down. Thank you. Go down. Go down. Go down. That was given to us, yeah. Thank you, members. Can we adopt this report, please? Mover and a shaker.
Moving for adoption, Chairperson, Wendy
Thank you.
Philander.
Shaker.
I will, Regan Allen, I will second.
Thank you. Can we do the next one, Wasima? I know members got other committees that start as well they need to go to. Wasima, are you there? Thank you. Next page. Just enlarge the page, please. This is the from October to December last year. Just enlarge the page. Remember, just make sure you're present at those meetings as reflected in the report, although the minutes would have reflected that anyway.
Chair, can they see?
Yeah. No, can you put it back up again? It just disappeared.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Page 1.
Page, go down to page 2. Go down. Remember this important page. Go back up again just for a few seconds. Yeah. And then you can go down. Next page. Next page. Thank you. Can we have a mover and a shaker, please?
Chairperson, I move that we adopt.
Thank you, Member Regan Allen. Seconder. Member Philander, second. Can we do the next report, please?
Chair, can they see?
Yeah. Masters here. Thank you. Second page.
April. Chair, can they see?
Yeah,
Okay.
we can see. You can go down, yeah. That was the oversight business on the West Coast. You can go down.
Oh, sorry, Chair.
That was the budget vote. You can go down. You can go down. You can go down. You can go down. With nothing happening really into provincial conferences. You can go down. Yeah. That was a public hearings cost. Yeah, you can go down. Thank you. Can we have a move and shaker, please? Honorable Philanders putting up a hand.
Adoption, Chairperson.
Can we have a seconder to this report, please?
I will second
Thank you.
the move by
Member Ellen.
Thank
and
you.
I think that's everything, Wasima, am I correct?
Yes, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Thank you for attending the committee, members. We'll send through the resolutions as captured, and we'll ask the department to provide us with those reports. So thank you for your time. Is there anything else before I adjourn this meeting?
Nothing else. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, members, and thank you for your time and the spirit in which the meeting was held again. This meeting is adjourned. I'll see you at the other committees later today.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Wasima and Lizette, for your time and tafsir. Much appreciated as always.
Thank you, Chair. Bye-bye.
Yes, Chair. Bye.
Cheers.